Yes, dude.
No.
Ooh.
You on?
What? The fish?
Yeah.
I don't know. All right. I did actually get that on camera.
We're due.
Okay, and rolling.
Are we rolling? Yeah. So, our day ended rather abruptly.
Yeah, Brian, I told you that was my sleeper hole, not my swimming hole.
Well, you know, I did hook a couple fish out of it.
Yeah, it was a good spot.
Well, despite being extremely wet all the way to the top of my head. In fact, you may have just seen footage of my hat floating. And being quite cold, we still managed to have a great day. A day of switch. On these types of videos, we like to throw in a little bit of the gear that we were using, which was all fairly new to me. I mean, I've done the switch thing before, but for those that haven't, we can run you through a little bit of the gear and the rigging and get some of Josh's input. Of course, Josh and I do things somewhat differently in certain cases, and so we'll talk a little bit about that. So first of all, the rod that you had me using was, if I'm not mistaken, the Pro 2 from TFO.
Yep.
And of course, you do quite a bit of work with TFO, and this is the 11-foot 6/7 weight, correct? And
Yep.
that's the one you typically have on the boat. Tell us why you like this rod.
Really perfect for the nymphing side of things. When we're nymphing with a switch rod, what I like about this rod in particular is it is a little bit softer, which is really nice, not just for fighting fish, but when you're trying to make these big roll casts and mends. I just feel like this rod does a better job being a soft rod than you would do with something that was a little faster action.
Yeah.
So this particular one, the 6/7 weight, you could do it with the 8, but I think the 6/7 fits just the best niche area for the nymphing setup. And 11 feet is a pretty standard length on a switch rod. Just works so much better for really both styles of fishing and drifting that we'll talk about, whether it be the stack mend or the high sticking. It's just really perfect.
It was definitely easy to cast. Amazing, whether you're doing a roll cast pickup or an overhead cast or just a roll cast. Super easy to cast, probably very forgiving for beginners. I bet you put a lot of switch rods in people's hands for the first time, and I can see where it's going to be fairly forgiving and fairly easy to cast. And not to mention the price is very reasonable. You do not have to break the bank to get into a switch rod. So that's the TFO Pro 2 and the 11-foot 6/7. And I was thrilled to see that you were using the new TFO NTR, no tools required reel.
Yeah, yep. I really can't say enough about this reel. The smoothness of it, the design of it. Obviously for years now, a super large arbor reel has been popular, and I just can't say enough about this reel. The functionality, the drag is ideal for steelheading in a number of fishing situations as well. And I know you talked a little bit about this reel probably not too long ago, and obviously one of the big things with the no tools required reel is how easy it is to switch back and forth between the left or right hand retrieve. And then just the value of this reel for being a fully machined reel at the price point it's at. I think this size goes about $170. That's just hard to beat. It's just hard to beat anywhere.
Well, and the drag system being cork, which is almost unheard of, under $200, and the drag system itself is sealed up. Not that that's that big of a deal, but being in and out of the water from time to time, and it's just, they seem to be, I've seen quite a few guys like yourselves using them already. They've been put to the test, and it has more drag than you need for steelhead. And it certainly doesn't break the bank, and you get a fully machined cork drag reel. So And I enjoyed fighting fish on it, and I've enjoyed using them elsewhere also. And okay, the line. You are really hot on this switch indicator from Rio, and I can tell you I had not used it before. I've heard Ryan here in the shop talk about this line. I've heard customers talk about this line and rave about it. But tell us about the white and red switch indicator line that you're using on this rod.
So we've just been in love with the Rio switch line since they came out. And the original switch line that they brought out was more designed to kind of do both nymphing and swinging. And now Rio has, they came out with the chucker a couple years back, and then this year finally with the switch indicator. And so now that that original switch line has been discontinued and gone away, and we've got the two lines here that do a much better job at each of what they do. This particular line in the white, which is out on your head, it's a really light line on the very end, and as you get out into the red, that's where your belly is, your heavy, thick part of the line. It allows us to get those long mends, long drifts. Really, the amount of water that you can cover with this line and how versatile it is, it's amazing. Because you're not overweighted in the front in the white line when you're just trying to make those light mends, especially if you're high sticking and you want to do the micro mends. It's not overbearing, it's not too heavy. But if you want to really get out there on some of the bigger water and make long mends, sometimes you're talking literally 100-foot drifts, this line is more than capable of that.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed fishing with it. It's really beautiful casting. Again, whether you're roll casting, whether you're overhead casting, and then obviously I learned a few lessons about the stack mending technique, and man, it just does it well. So again, that's the Rio switch indicator. I'm sure there's a link down there below us. And the other line that we use from time to time and recommend for folks is the switch chucker from Rio. And the switch chucker you can nymph fish with it. It's probably not as much of an indicator line, but it's maybe a little more versatile for traditional style spay casting and for swinging flies. So that's the other one called the switch chucker that we oftentimes outfit folks. So, and I'll talk a pinch about my leader formula. That is basically my nymph leader formula that I use for steelhead, for trout, almost anywhere, but we had to modify it a little bit for the indicator line since this is such a heavy head. So we'll talk about that here in just a second, but you were also, I noticed, using the Oros indicators, of course.
Yeah. I don't think we have to like really beef that up or talk about it at this point. I think everybody's kind of seen the Oros from us, we have sold a lot of Oros recently. Everybody's in love with this indicator, and it says right on the package, it's just better. Well, it really is. The way that this indicator works, when you can just unscrew it, lay that line in there. There's no kink. You don't have to worry about it getting kinked up. They really don't slide. You can get them pretty much finger tight. You don't have to go crazy and really bear down on it. And I haven't had any issues with them sliding up and down the rig. The depth pretty much stays where you set it. And it's just so simple. And one nice thing is you have two pieces here. They both float, and that's it. So if you're out in the middle of the river and you fumble around, something happens, you drop a piece, you can grab it real quick, it's floating. There's not any small pieces that are gonna sink or get away from you. And it's just the absolute perfect steelhead fishing indicator. I can't imagine anything any better.
This large size is perfect for this, especially what we were doing with this switch rod.
Yeah, 1 inch for the steelhead.
Yeah, and you can use it. It's heavy, or it's buoyant enough to support if you're right angle nymphing, if you want to hang flies off the bottom, and then of course still serves as an indicator. And it's just so easy. There's no parts to lose. You just slide the butt section of the leader down into that slot on, we'll call this the male end. You know why I call it the male end?
I have a good general idea.
And then there's a female side of that. And that's it. You screw it on. And again, you don't have to reef on this. You don't need to pull out your Manly pliers or a pair of vice grips to get this thing to stay. I mean, we'll call it finger tight.
Yeah.
And there you go. And it's not going to slide around. I've yet to have any of these move. And the other cool thing is you can kind of mix and match the colors. I mean, they're sold as singles, individuals. You can also get the 3-packs, and you can mix and match the colors. One combination that I've found that I've been using trout fishing is the white and the orange. And you screw them together, and you have the creamsicle. And this would be the pink sickle. I mean, I don't know what orange and pink would be. Pornge?
Yes.
Orange. We'll call it pornge. Okay, so Oros indicators, the large size, which as of this filming, you really can't buy them, but hopefully by the time you see this, we'll be back up and running with those. You can always give us a call. We might have a secret stash of them here in the shop. So the leader formula, I'll draw this out on the whiteboard as we talk about it, but it's a super simple 3-part butt section that I use. And it's the same thing that I've taught you for nymph or steelhead fishing previously, but all I did was up the butt section, up the butt, a 30-pound amnesia. Oops. Yeah, you can kind of cut through that. A good leader starts in the butt.
It sure does.
Yep. So all I did was up the butt with, and I went from 20-pound amnesia to 30-pound amnesia. And what that does, since this switch indicator line is so much heavier than your average 6-weight or 7-weight standard weight forward floating line, I need the additional stiffness and diameter in that butt section to absorb that energy. And then all I'm doing is stepping down to a limp material, such as the Cortland monofilament. You can use Maxima Ultra Green, and then I'm going from the 30-pound to 2 foot of 13 thousandths, 2 foot of 12 thousandths, and then I'm tying on a 3mm tippet ring, which you can get from the folks at Cortland. And then off of that, you're going to run, say, 1 to 2 foot of tippet, maybe even 3 foot of tippet, and most of the time I'm using 1X, 2X tippet.
Yeah, I really think the length, I mentioned here too, the length of the tippet might depend on the presentation. So, because none of these presentations are exactly the same weight. So, say for instance, if we're running a tandem scrambled egg, you could run a little bit shorter of the initial length of tippet versus with the bead, I'm going to run a little longer tippet. And always, just like whether I'm using a weighted nymph or a bead, those are always going to go ahead of, if I'm running a tandem rig, what the second fly is, being that they're heavier. So I would run a longer leader or longer tippet section to a bead or a weighted nymph. And then I might shorten that if it was just scrambled eggs or yarn flies that were a little lighter weight.
Mm-hmm. That leader formula, again, it's just a simple 3-part butt section, tippet ring, and then your tippet, which, maybe a foot to 2 foot, depending on what you're doing. So let's talk real quick about the flies, and then I want you to talk about the beads, because that is something that I have not really done much of here in the Great Lakes, and especially Lake Erie. Of course, we do it up in Alaska, but I want you to talk about that real quick. And of course, we catch most of our steelhead, especially this time of year, during the late fall, winter, and into the spring, on either nymphs and just basic nymphs, your black stone flies. So there's just a variety of different nymphs. You can always jump on our website. I'm sure there's a link down there to the steelhead flies that we use here in the Lake Erie region. Here's another one called the Chicken Little. That's one of our favorites, especially when the water's up a little bit and it's kind of got that hot spot on there. So a variety of different nymphs that we use, but I know you're kind of an egg guy, and so is Ryan. In fact, I spent my holiday weekend tying up egg patterns in anticipation of the spring season. But you've got sucker spawn, of course, standard glow bugs will work here. a fly called the crystal meth. The crystal meth is basically a sucker spawn tied with sparkle braid, I believe. And those are good for high water, but I would say my go-to is always the scrambled egg.
Yep.
And I think it's yours as well. The scrambled egg is it's a sucker spawn tied with micro glow bug yarn. And you want to have a variety of colors. Chartreuse is good. There's some combos that we use that are good. Of course, steelhead orange, but I'd have to say, if I had to pick one steelhead fly, it's the Oregon cheese.
The Oregon cheese scrambled eggs. It's a go-to. It's a go-to for about everybody in the shop that steelhead fishes. All of the scrambled eggs, I think the main thing is they work pretty much through the entire season, whether there's a lot of eggs in the system or not. It's just ingrained in these fish to respond and to eat that. And then really for me, it's just my color selection is based on the watercolor. So the dirtier water, I stick to the chartreuse and the steelhead orange. But the ideal water that most of the time you're looking for when you show up and you get lucky and that river's greenish in color and somewhere between 15 inches and maybe 30, 34 inches of visibility, you just can't beat that Oregon cheese. It's just been a go-to for us. I think we pretty much just keep Paul busy on just ordering scrambled eggs for the shop.
Yeah, that's his job title, is scrambled egg orderer.
Yeah, that's it. Yep. And then, of course, I'll go right to the
hold on.
We didn't do the blue.
We didn't talk about blue. And I tell you what, it was, 25 years ago, Kelly Gallup wrote an article about blue eggs, and he talked about blue eggs being a go-to color for cold water. When the water's really cold, very early in the morning especially, don't forget that light blue. That's a critical color, and every good egg box should have that light blue in it. So anyways, as a segue, again, you were using beads, and I know that you and Ryan and some of our other guides, you're really hot on the beads. So tell us about that, and here's a little tippet if you want to show us a quick demo on how you rig them up. PSA time. And now, time for a public service announcement. Well, folks, we thought we would take this opportunity in all seriousness to discuss some of the concerns and haphazards of winter fishing. As you have seen, it's entirely possible that you could fall in the water and get wet, and it can be very, very dangerous. I know we joke about it, but obviously it can be very dangerous, and thank you for all the comments on the previous episode, and I'm sure on this one, where I did in fact fall in the water. And just a couple of notes other than common sense. Make sure that if you're fishing in the winter, that you have an extra set of clothing, and I mean from your skivvies all the way up. Could not be more important. You should have that on the boat with you. You want to carry it in a dry bag such that if something like happened to me would happen to you, you can easily change out of those wet clothes and get into the dry clothes. That can make a world of difference, and it may in fact save your life. And then also make sure that you are well versed and very well informed on hypothermia and how to notice the signs of potential hypothermia, and then also know what to do if you think that hypothermia should be setting in. In fact, that day, you didn't necessarily see it on camera, but the entire float out, Josh McQueen, who is obviously certified in first aid, being a guide, he was very concerned about me and kept checking and making sure that I had my wits about me, which I think the verdict's still out. So yeah, make sure you know about hypothermia and what you can do to help prevent it should something like that happen to you. So just use your head, be safe out there, and carry an extra set of clothes. You're really hot on the beads, so tell us about that, and here's a little tippet if you want to show us a quick demo on how you rig them up.
Yeah, they've become quite popular over the years, and it's easy to see why. I mean, a bead is, it seems pretty simple when you look at it, but a bead just looks like an egg. It's perfectly round like an egg, and obviously a variety of colors. Here I'm holding chartreuse, which again works well in dirtier water. But we have an array of colors at the shop that work, again, with every watercolor. We have a caramel color bead, which looks exactly like a salmon egg. I mean, you cannot tell the difference when you're holding that thing in your hand. I think the biggest shocker for the bead is the way you rig it. If you haven't used it before, a lot of people were blown away that you do not want the bead to sit directly on the hook. In fact, you'll miss almost every fish that bites it if it's on the hook. So we have these TB pegs, the trout bead pegs. Clear and red, I believe, are the two colors in the shop. And they come, I don't know what it is, about 2.5 inches long. They're meant to be cut in half. You just go ahead and you cut those in half. You can cut them different lengths depending on if you have a smaller bead, but the standard size beads that we use, which are typically 8 and 10 millimeter and some 12s even, you just want to cut that peg right in half. I'm going to take my tippet here, just slide the bead right on, and then the peg easily goes in, obviously the smaller taper first. And I'll just snug that up till it's basically almost flush on the one side. Make sure you pull your tippet tight against the bead, and you can take your nipper and just trim flush. Kind of like the red because it gives you a little blood dot look to it there. But the clear is just the same. They both hold the bead well. You can slide the bead up and down easily when you're rigging. This hook that I've been using for a couple of seasons now is a Hannock jig hook. I have a theory on why I believe this hook works so well with a jig hook, which is common in Euro flies.
Yeah.
Being that it has that bend on the end of it. When you're putting pressure on that, it is forcing that hook angle more into the fish. So even the barbless version, if you prefer barbless, as long as you keep pressure, it's constantly pushing that hook tip right into the jaw line there, and it's just keeping a good snug hold on the fish. So I'll just go ahead and tie this up real quick with an improved clinch knot, and then I'll show you about where that bead position goes.
That's really one of your first theories that have made sense to me.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yep.
So usually we're running about, it's more dependent on bead size. The smaller the bead, I'll get a little closer to the hook. The bigger the bead, I'll go a little farther away from it. But about 1.5 inches to 2 inches in most cases is perfect. And there's a reason for this. As the bead's drifting down, when the fish goes to suck the bead in, both ends of the line are about like this. You see the strike on your awesome Oros indicator. Maybe it's a bicolored Oros indicator. It goes down. You go to set the hook, the bead comes back out, and the hook goes around. Typically, a lot of times we see that the hook is snug right on the jaw line, maybe a little bit outside of it, maybe a little inside, but the hook ends up pretty good right on the jaw line. So I would say definitely lose a lot less fish with this particular hook too. Seems like hookups stay on a little bit better. And again, always rig the bead first, and if you do want to run a tandem rig, you can just tie directly to the bend of the hook and maybe put a scrambled egg there on the back as well, which I've seen a lot of cases where for one reason or another, you'll see the fish cater, they tend to prefer one or the other presentation depending on water temperature or flow or whatever the spot you're drifting is. So,
well, that's definitely the rig that worked best for us on our day of switch. Here in Ohio was the bead and the scrambled the Oregon cheese scrambled egg behind it. So, well, cool, man. That's kind of like I said, I've done that in Alaska, and I know it's been popular in Alaska for years, and it's just kind of gaining popularity here in Ohio. I know that a lot of the guides here at Mad River Outfitters and Ohio Fly Fishing guides like that. So there you have it. We got the rods, we got the reels, we got some lines. As always, Josh, man, that was a fun day, even though it ended rather abruptly and quite dramatically, to be honest with you, as you probably saw there. But anyways, as always, friends, thanks for watching. And if you're ever interested in getting out with a guide and learning all these kind of fun and interesting things over the course of a day, Josh and our full staff of guides here at Mad River Outfitters and Ohio Fly Fishing Guides. Make sure to check out www.ohioflyfishingguides.com for more information on what Josh and the team here due for Steelhead. Our Steelhead season runs late September through really almost mid-April, early May in some cases. So if you've ever wanted to get out and catch Steelhead on a fly, or better yet, try a switch rod for it, which was a lot of fun. So thanks again, Josh.
Yep.
It's always a
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Good to be with you. And stay tuned, friends. Be sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and stay tuned because we've got a lot more coming at you.
All right, well, thank you for tuning in there, cool cats and anglers. And be sure to prescribe to our videos.
No. It's subscribe.
Oh,
Yep, subscribe, not prescribe.
gotcha.
Yep, do it again.
Oh, well, thank you for tuning in, and make sure you subscribe to our videos.
Much better. You know, fact is that only about 60% of the folks that watch our videos actually subscribe to our channel. And it just really helps us out, and that way you get notified every time we release a video. So be sure to
Subscribe.
subscribe. Really helps us out.
Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it.
If you like this video, hit subscribe. It helps out a lot. And check out these videos. We think you might like them too.